A few years ago, I got frostbite on two of my fingers. This one, the left middle finger, it recovered fully. It looked like a normal finger again. And yet, as you can see, I cut it off. In this video, I'm going to tell you why, and more importantly, I'm going to tell you the number one reason why people get stuck and they don't make progress on their path. And I'm going to give you a very specific, clear action step you can take to help you if you're feeling lost. If you feel like you're at a crossroads and you're not sure which decision to take, this action step will help you move forward. And it is not about following your passion. That is a huge mistake and it is deeply flawed advice. I will explain why, and I will show you how this action step will give you something more practical and concrete to help you move forward on your path. Now first, let me tell you about the finger and how this applies to you. 4 years ago, I was on an expedition in Antarctica, the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on the planet, an absolutely hostile and unforgiving land. My team and I, my team of 3 other people, we had just become one of only 26 human beings on Earth to ski up a very remote glacier called the Heiberg. It was a very arduous and challenging journey. This was the same glacier that Roald Amundsen used to climb up when he reached the South Pole on his expedition 110 years ago. So there's a lot of history to this glacier. We got to the top of the glacier, and 4 days later, I got frostbite on these 2 fingers. See, the thing is, I have a blood disorder that transports about 25% less oxygen through my bloodstream than normal. 2 doctors told me this blood disorder would kill me if I were to enlist in the Marines, as I did many years ago. They said that I could not go into Marine Corps boot camp because it would kill me. Obviously, I survived. Not only did I survive, but I graduated in infantry school as the honor graduate of my platoon. But when you have a blood disorder that transports less oxygen through your body, it is a problem in terms of blood and oxygen flowing through your extremities. So although I was wearing my gloves, I wasn't walking around with no gloves or holding metal with no gloves or anything stupid like that, I got frostbite. Later on, I did find out that I was wearing gloves a little bit more than I should have, and even though at the time I got frostbite, I had mittens on, there was a cumulative buildup that led to the frostbite when I really assessed what went wrong. Since then, I've made many remedies and I've been back in the cold, which leads me to what happened with the fingers. So I got frostbite on day 17 of my expedition. Day 18, I was evacuated. Gradually over time, the frostbite got worse, much worse, as you can see in this picture right here. It was pretty gnarly looking, to say the least. And the wisdom today is when you have frostbite, as you can see, that it was black up to here on both fingers. A long time ago, the wisdom was if you get frostbite, you see the black, you cut it off immediately. Today, we know better. The idea, the wisdom told by doctors is to wait. Just wait it out and see if it'll recover. It took about 7 months before this finger, the right ring finger, it just became a black nub, as you can see here in this picture. A black nub, pretty gnarly looking. And at this point, based on the fact that there was this gap between the black nub and my finger, there was no way that was going to recover. That had to go. I had to have surgery to have that removed, which in and of itself was quite a funny story. I live in Arizona, and I was trying to call doctors to see who would cut this finger off for me. Called plastic surgeons, hand surgeons, doctors, hospitals. No one wanted to cut it off. They refused. They just said, we don't do this. And it was a funny conversation, especially being in Arizona. Now, being a veteran, I was going to go to the VA hospital, but it was taking too long. So ultimately, I flew to India, where I'm from, my family lives, and got that finger cut off the day after I arrived. So this finger, black nub, cut off, had to go. Now this finger here, the left middle finger, it recovered fully. It looked just as normal as this other finger. So I thought, great, going back on expeditions. I went on an expedition in Svalbard in way northern Arctic, north of the Arctic Circle, a beautiful, stunning place in northern Norway. During this expedition, it got as cold as -37 and probably below when we didn't actually measure the temperature. So it was very, very cold, to say the least. And I had moments when I was struggling where this little tip of this finger would get colder faster than the rest of my fingers. And that was real challenging out there. Because the thing is, when you get frostbite, for the rest of your life, you will always be more prone to frostbite in that area. So this was a problem for me. Because at the time, I was training to attempt to be the first human being on Earth to ski coast to coast across Antarctica. A journey of 1,750 miles, dragging what ended up being a 420-pound sled for 115 days. This was my mission, this was my soul, this was my world. I was obsessed on this path committed to it. My entire reality was devoted to it. I've been on expeditions in Antarctica, in the Arctic, in Iceland, in Greenland, all over. So when this problem presented itself, that this finger was getting cold, it was a serious concern. So I met with a doctor in the Arctic, a doctor who's very familiar with frostbite, and I told him the situation. And I said, look, here's the issue. I need to go back out in the cold. I have this expedition I'm planning. What do you think I should do? I even said I'm potentially thinking of maybe just having this preemptively removed. And the doctor said, I don't think you should do that. And I said, what part? He said, I don't think you should do the expedition in Antarctica. I don't think you should go back on any cold weather expeditions. I asked him, I said, what about if it's a shorter one? Hypothetically speaking. I knew I would still go to Antarctica, but hypothetically speaking. And he said, no, I don't think you can do cold weather expeditions anymore. That to me was not an option. Smiled, thanked him for his advice, and went on about my way. I had only one decision left to make. There was no choice anymore, not to me. I had to cut this finger off. It was a severe liability. And to me, imagine now I'm on this journey in Antarctica. I get frostbite because this finger is more prone to frostbite than all the other ones. And it's a very, very hard thing to navigate when you're in the cold, when one finger gets cold faster. Because the problem is, even if you put too much warmth on, which I did when I was in Svalbard, this finger would now be warm, but the rest would get sweaty because it was too hot. So I couldn't temperature regulate my hands. So I made the decision to cut it off. Over here, I knew but nobody would do it. Certainly not. So I went back to India, told the doctor I need to preemptively cut this off. The doctor refused to do it. Met 3 doctors, refused to do it. I said, we can't. This is a good finger. It looks normal again. We can't just cut this off. And the doctor even told me I have diabetic patients who sometimes they'll have to have cut certain parts off and they don't want to do it. And he has to push them to cut it off. He said, you're the first person ever, the first patient ever who I'm saying don't cut it off and you're fighting to cut it off. And I said, doctor, I don't think you would understand. The finger, the tip of a finger means nothing to me. I am not the tip of my finger and it is not me. It is a very small price to pay for what I am after. For the journey to the depths of the human soul, cutting off a finger means nothing to me. It's a small price to pay, and it's one I have to do. Ultimately, what convinced the doctor to do it was my mom's support. My parents live in India, and my mom said, doctor, I need you to cut this finger off for my son, because she knew how much this meant to me, and she knew that this was a liability. Now, ultimately, since cutting it off, I've been on many cold weather expeditions, including Antarctica again, and it proved to be 100% the right call to have this cut off. And when I had it cut off, it hurt like hell. We put local anesthesia in the finger, just needles in here. That part really hurt too. And after it cut off, obviously I didn't feel the cutting off of the finger. I didn't feel that because it was local anesthetic. But when that wore off, it hurt like hell. That night, I remember I was asleep and I accidentally slammed my finger against the headboard. And it's hard to describe how horrifically painful that was. But this was a price worth paying. And this is the number one reason why people get stuck. It doesn't matter what your goal is. Whatever your path, whatever you seek, you might not be seeking might not be chasing a journey across Antarctica. Probably not. I'm guessing you're not. But it doesn't matter what you're chasing. It doesn't matter what your goal. There is a sacrifice you will need to make in order to get there. There is always going to be a sacrifice. At any point in life, when you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. And when you say no to something, you are saying yes to something else. Most of us are doing this subconsciously. We're not doing it without even thinking. I'm just going to come home at night, binge watch Netflix, drink a couple of bottles of beer. You know what you're saying no to? You're saying no to that book you've always wanted to write, that relationship you've always wanted, the dream relationship, the business you've wanted to start, whatever it may be. You're saying no to something else. But we're not doing that consciously. There is always going to be a price to pay. Now, I'm 99.9% sure your price to pay is not going to be the tip of a finger. But think about that figuratively and metaphorically for you. What is that price you have to pay? What is that tip of the finger for you to go after your dream? If you want more courage, the price to pay is fear. You cannot have courage without fear. You want more strength, the price to pay is struggle. You can't have strength without struggle. You want to tap into your power, the price to pay is pain. You cannot know your power without pain. The things we want most in life, there is always a price to pay. You want to unearth the greatest of treasures, you're going to have to battle the biggest dragon. And the bigger the dragon you battle, the greater the treasure you unearth. Which is why I went out to Antarctica in the first place. I wanted to battle the biggest dragon I could find. After lifetimes, decades of playing on the edge in the most extreme environments, I wanted to battle a bigger dragon, to be completely alone by myself in the most hostile, unforgiving land on the planet, to unearth the deepest treasures of the human soul. So what's that price you are willing to pay? Are you clear on it? Are you willing to pay that price? A simple action step to get clear on this is to think about where you are now. And whatever the crossroads, at any point in life, there's really two paths ahead of you. And as you keep moving forward to the path, there's always going to be new branches, new crossroads that form. But in this moment, you're currently at a crossroad. It could be as simple as this evening. Do I want to go to the gym or not? Do I want to eat that dessert or not? There's always two outcomes. And what I'm about to suggest is not just for those small micro decisions, although those small micro decisions add up to create your life. They add up to shape your destiny. But think about it on the macro decisions, the bigger decisions. Do I want to be in this relationship that's terrible or struggle with being single? Do I want to start that business and go through the tremendous adversity of starting a business? Or do I want to be in this job I hate? Do I want to train hard? Do I want to get those six-pack abs? Or do I want to stay overweight? Either way, you're going to suffer. Whether you or not you seek it, you're going to suffer. And if you don't seek out a worthy struggle, a struggle worthy of who you are and who you want to be, struggle will find you anyway. So the question to ask is not which passion do I want to follow, but which struggle am I willing to endure? And this is the huge mistake people make in following your passion, or why they don't make progress on their path. They're looking for that thing that'll bring them joy. There's lots of things I enjoy. There's lots of passions I have. But the question to ask is not which passion you want to follow, which struggle are you willing to endure? Because you will not rise to the level of the desires you want. You will fall to the level of the struggle you are willing to endure. There's a lot of things I enjoy. A lot. But the question is, which struggle are you willing to endure? Whichever the crossroads you find yourself in, there will be a struggle. Stay unhealthy or start training and get fit. You're going to suffer. What struggle are you willing to endure? Passion is built. It's created. You develop passion when you get good at something. I had not done enough of these hardcore adventures that I realized this was my bliss. In the words of Joseph Campbell, who said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were none before. That was my bliss. I developed that after decades of exploring, testing, playing on the edge, and I realized this was my bliss. So this was the struggle I was willing to endure, and I endured tremendous amount of struggle for it. I cut off a finger for it. I have trained here in Arizona, dragging tires in up to 125 degrees. I've gotten heat exhaustion, frostbite, hypothermia. I have pushed my body literally to the brink of death. In Antarctica, after 60 days of pulling a 420-pound sled for 500 miles in one of the most brutal environments on Earth, with more soft snow than Antarctica usually gets during this expedition season, I literally pushed my body to the brink of death. I got diverticulitis and I had to be evacuated. It was absolutely brutal and unforgiving, but I was the first human being on Earth to even attempt a journey of this magnitude, one so daunting and so brutal. And I suffered so much for it, but it was a price I was willing to pay, because that was my bliss. Now, your bliss may not be Antarctica. It doesn't have to be. Antarctica is certainly not the only path to enlightenment. But whatever your bliss is, there's going to be a figurative and metaphorical finger you're going to have to cut off to get there. What is that for you? And once you get good at something, then you will develop the passion for it. Don't chase passion. Chase an interest, something that sparks something of interest, and then ask yourself, which struggle are you willing to endure? So how do you apply this? A simple action step that I do for clients I've worked with. I'll have them write down the crossroads. So take out a piece of paper. Now this is path A, path B. For path A, write down the rewards and the struggles. Path B, the rewards and the struggles. So whichever path, whichever crossroads, ask yourself, what are the outcomes that I could get from this? What are all the potential rewards? Not just in the outcomes, but even on the journey of chasing that outcome. What are the rewards? And what are the struggles? And you may not know all of them. And trust me, you won't. Depending on where you are on your journey. I mean, even as a professional adventurer, someone who's done this for decades, I had no idea I'm going to end up on the on the brink of death with diverticulitis and almost lead to peritonitis, which is actually what killed another adventurer 8 years ago in Antarctica. So I was on the brink there. Had I not stopped to recover and get antibiotics, it could have been much worse. I didn't know that was the struggle I would endure. And that pain, that gut pain that I felt on day 58 and even day 60, it was horrific. It was miserably painful. I didn't know that was coming. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. I have no doubt that was the right path for me. That was my path. That doesn't have to be your path. But that was my path. It was a struggle I was willing to endure. I could have not done that. I could have not cut off the finger. I could have listened to the doctor who said, don't ever do cold weather expeditions again. I could have found something else to do. There's a lot of other things I enjoy. I'm an author. I love that process. I'm an entrepreneur. I enjoy the impact my business makes. I love public speaking. I could have just focused on that and not done these things. But then there would have been that struggle, that existential dread, knowing in my life that I never reached up to my true potential. I never gave my all. I never gave my soul to the path that I knew I was capable of, even if the journey didn't end up the way I wanted it to. And literally, it's an impossible journey. Adventurers told me, anyone who attempts this will probably fail, but it was worth fighting for me. It was worth fighting for. And that struggle, had I not chosen that path, that existential dread of one day when I'm on my deathbed many, many, many years from now, and I look back on my life and I say, that was a dream, but I never pursued it. That's the price I did not want to pay. That was the price I did not want to pay. When the pain of inaction outweighs the pain of action, you will take action. So get clear on that. Think about that in the outcome. The struggle you endure in path A and path B. If path B is that thing you've always wanted to do, but you're scared, think about when you write down the struggle on path A, write down and feel this fully. Being on your deathbed, looking back at your life, will you regret it? Will that eat at your soul? Do you want to die unfulfilled? Do you want to die with regret? I'll tell you one thing. I've done a lot of things in my life, a lot of crazy things. I've gotten hurt. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I don't regret ever fighting forward. I don't regret ever trying. I don't regret ever giving it that shot. And you won't either. Because it may not turn out the way you want, but you're still going to get a hell of a story out of it, a hell of a life experience out of it. You'll get an epic life experience. Either way, however it plays out. And you'll keep fighting forward. I'm back in the fight now. I hurt tremendously. When I came back mentally, physically, I was on the brink of death. There's still all kinds of issues. Got a blood test done recently, a lot wrong with the body. Body's still recovering, but it was worth it. And I'm back in the fight and I'm back training. And I have zero regrets about it. So get clear. What struggle are you willing to endure? Write it down. And use that element of thinking about your own mortality, thinking about the day you die, and think about whether that pain of inaction is going to outweigh the pain of action. And remember this, I'll leave you with these final words, and this is ultimately why I cut off my finger. Because the price was worth it. So what price are you willing to pay? The question to ask is not which passion do you want to follow, but what price are you willing to pay? And what struggle are you willing to endure? Choose that struggle, chase that struggle, and you'll find your peace.